All right, folks, we're going to get started. Thank you for being here today. This is the first of our Lunch and Lead. I want to call it Literacy Lunch and Lead series that the Literacy Task Force of Wisconsin is hosting. We have lots of presentations for you once a month for the next school year. And we hope that you invite others to join and understand what the process is about literacy, structured literacy implementation in your school district. It's about science of reading, structures, and systems that need to change. I'm here today with Nancy Dressel, my VP, Vice, what are you, the President in waiting?
Yeah, I think the bylaws say president-elect.
President-elect.
Your greatest cheerleader and supporter.
And we appreciate you being here. And today we're honored to have Sharon Dunn. Sharon and I met a couple years ago when she was introduced to me through Stephanie Stoller of Ohio. And she is one of the moderators or administrators, I should say, of the Science of Reading for Administrators Facebook page. So that's another resource for you. Sharon Dunn is the MTSS leadership consultant, is a former principal of a high poverty elementary school. Sharon's instructional leadership substantially improved reading outcomes at her school. Her work was highlighted in the Dibbles Acadians newsletter nationwide, the 95% group overview guide, Glean's Educational Leadership podcast, and Dr. Stephanie Stoller's Reading Academy webinar and California Reading Coalition panel webinar. She has presented her school's literacy improvement at several state and national reading conferences. Sharon is also the creator of the Facebook social learning group, Science of Reading for Administrators, What Teachers Want You to Know. And we are so happy to have you, Sharon, and thanks for agreeing to do this. And without further ado, Sharon Dunn.
Thank you, Donna. I just thank you for providing the opportunity and asking me to be a part of this, kicking off this year. I'm truly humbled and honored. Thank you. And thank you for all you do and the platform you have with your Facebook group page, all that you're doing to help everyone along their journey in the science of reading. And that's what today's about. I'm just glad to be here as a support in your journey about learning more about the science of reading. I just want it known I'm just a practitioner. I learned a lot along the way as we were able to turn the reading outcomes and improve reading at our elementary school. I've walked through the fire, so to speak, but we persevered and we were able to make a huge difference for our students of poverty. I have to say, being the principal of Loudon Elementary, which is in Panama Buena Vista Union School District, located in Bakersfield, California, that it was the most rewarding and profound experience of my life. And I truly am privileged to have had that opportunity. Our school, when I was appointed principal, was in program improvement. Just to give you a little statistics or a frame of reference, we had 87% poverty, 70% Hispanic, 14% African American, and 28% EL, 840 students, and budgets were really tight. And so I knew that the buck stopped with me, that I was ultimately the one responsible for this staff and their learning, the students, their learning. There weren't any assessments that were of quality. We literally started from scratch. And we had dismal end of the year test scores. And I was just blessed to work with an amazing staff, such dedicated teachers. It was the teachers, the specialists, the paraprofessionals, and myself. We learned together, shoulder to shoulder, side by side, on the tenets of science of reading and what it takes to improve reading outcomes. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't all come together at once. It was a journey and it was a process. And as I love the book by Jim Collins, Good to Great, it really helped me through. I've read it 2 or 3 times. One of his quotes is, "Will you do whatever it takes?" And that just really stuck with me. I had to do whatever it takes to improve reading. I had to figure it out. And if I can do it, you can do it. And that's why I'm here today. So during my journey, I had the
Sharon,
personal.
can I interrupt you? Do you
Yeah.
have the next slide, or are you still on the same slide?
Yeah, I'm still, yeah.
Okay, just
yeah,
wanted to make
just-
sure.
I just want to frame a few things first. That during this journey, I was able to personally learn from some of the greatest professionals in the field. And one being Dr. Stephanie Staller, who is a consultant, and she was the creator of Reading Science Academy. Dr. Susan Hall, who is the co-founder of 95% Group, and she's the author of several books that I've read, and also has co-authored with Dr. Louisa Moats. She and her consultant, Sandy Davis, who works side by side with our school to improve reading outcomes. And I also was able to learn from Dr. Roland Good and be a Dibbles or Acadian's mentor. And he personally helped me along my journey. And he's the president and director of research and development for Acadian's Learning. And he's the co-author of Acadian's Reading, which was previously Dibbles Next. So today's focus is a call to action, as you can see by the slide. And we are here because we know from the research that how we learn to read, how students learn to read, what goes wrong when students don't learn, and what kind of instruction will most likely work for most of our students. As administrators, it's our responsibility, and we are the ones to make the professional learning occur, the hard decisions for the assessments, the instruction, the intervention as it relates to literacy. In the limited time we have today, I want to be as simple and as clear as possible to help move you along your journey. We're all in different places. And to do that, let's just start with creating the sense of urgency, starting with the brutal facts. I'm sure many of you have seen this chart, but it's worth repeating because 65% of our students across the nation are not proficient in reading. In California, it's 67%. At least 70% of our students need explicit, systematic, sequential instruction, which is structured literacy. And we know from the research that 95% of our students are able to learn to read. We are one of the healthiest and wealthiest countries in the world, and 35% proficient in reading is all we have. That is an inequity that needs to be fixed. It is the equity issue of our day because it ripples out to all aspects of society. And through the science of reading research, we have the answers for most children to learn to read. I am honored and a little bit excited to share with you. This kind of frames the presentation today. I was asked by the Reading League to create a video for administrators because they have authored a defining guide for the science of reading. And I was given permission to share this video today. So if you bear with me, I'm gonna see if this link will work and give it a whirl. I know they'll be
I'm a teacher just like you.
a little bit of
And if
ads.
you're anything like me, you've wasted your plan time trying to find a video for one of your
Skip ads and do this.
My name is Sharon Dunn. I'm a former principal of a high poverty elementary school that dramatically improved reading outcomes through the science of reading. I'm helping other school leaders learn how the science of reading can turn around literacy outcomes.
Sharon?
Yeah.
We're seeing your slide and not the
We
video.
have a call to action. Across the U.S.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We're seeing your slide and not the video. I don't know if you need to share a different tab that the videos open on.
Okay. Let's see. Whoops, hold on. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
Hmm. So what would I be looking for? Stop the share, maybe?
Sure.
Um,
Yep. And then share specifically the browser window that the video's in. Or share your whole screen and then you might be able to flip back and forth.
Can you see anything there?
we see
We
you.
still see you.
Okay, let me see. I have the full screen. I'm looking for, is it in settings?
Usually it's down at the bottom of the screen that you click share content and then you can choose what you share.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Okay, well, I think just
Can we just,
probably-
is it just you talking?
Yeah, so you just listen to it,
Oh,
I
well,
think.
let's just listen.
All right.
Get us back to your slide show.
My name is Sharon
All
Dunn.
right.
I'm a former principal of a high poverty elementary school that dramatically improved reading outcomes through the science of reading. I'm helping other school leaders learn how the science of reading can turn around literacy outcomes in their school. As principals, we have a call to action. Across the US, over 65% of our fourth grade students did not reach proficiency in reading, according to the nation's report card in 2019. And that's before we witnessed the disrupted learning caused by the pandemic. We have broken systems that have failed our students. As Demings states, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. But what if I told you we could change that system? Just imagine if I told you there was a way to prevent reading failure, a way to close the achievement gap, a way to improve students' trajectory in life forever. Would you want to know more? Would you want to know how? Well, we do know. We know from the emerging consensus of the studies conducted regarding the science of reading. We know how students learn to read, what goes wrong when students don't learn, and what kind of instruction is most likely to work for the most students. All proficient readers must master the same concepts to learn to read. As principals, we really are the linchpin at our school sites. The onus is ours. It's essential that we equip ourselves and our teachers through ongoing professional learning about the science of reading, because we make the hard decisions about selecting evidence-aligned assessments, such as utilizing a valid and reliable universal screener and diagnostic reading assessments, that we implement database decision-making processes which directly impact instruction, curriculum, intervention as it relates to structured literacy. It's up to us to assure the systems and structures of MTSS are in place, because that is the framework in which we implement the science of reading. We must challenge approaches to reading instruction that are not aligned with the scientific research. As an instructional leader, it takes courage to reconsider and honestly take a look at how we are improving reading outcomes and literacy for all students, or if we're not. There's no silver bullet, no one curriculum. It's all about equipping ourselves and our teachers with the tenets of the science of reading, and supporting and guiding staff along the way in improving reading outcomes. Improving literacy and closing the achievement gap is the equity issue of our time, and it is our call to action. Okay, let's just hope that nothing else comes on, because I don't know how to get to it.
Other banks go
Oh,
out of their way
boy.
to make redeeming
Okay,
credit
hold
card
on.
rewards needlessly complicated. But Discover isn't like that. With Discover, you can redeem your rewards for cash in any amount at any time. Learn more at discover.com/.
Well, there you go with discover.com. Let's get back to, you still can see my screen?
We see your screen and the speakers and the slideshow, the rest of it. So
Right.
go back
Is
there.
that
you go.
better?
Yep.
All right, sorry about that. So much for the sneak peek, and but they have professionally edited and add music and other slides within that presentation. So within this defining guide, their video series has little vignettes of professionals talking about what's in the defining guide, and it's going to be pretty exciting when it's all rolled out. So as I said, if I can do it, you can do it. And it does take an unprecedented amount of courage. And courage is deciding that watching students not become proficient in reading is no longer an option. Realizing that what you have is not a product of the way things should be, but how you've allowed them to unfold. As principals and district administrators, the onus is ours. It's our call to action. We are the ones that really have control of the situation, either the principal or the district curriculum and instruction and assessment coordinators or administrators. Equipping ourselves with the research is critical. These are some of the foundational works, the National Reading Panel. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of studies. And then we have fabulous research books that support us in our journey. But today I really want to focus on what happens at the school site and that we can prevent reading failure. We have kindergarten through 6th grade. Elementary is the critical piece in all of this. We especially in our pre-K and our TK, kindergarten, 1st grade. As you see in the green line, those are typical readers, but those that struggle, remember the brutal facts we looked at, there are 70% of kids that are 65 to 70% that may really struggle. And the older they get, the harder it is to close that gap by 3rd grade, by 6th grade. I have to say that's one thing we learned at Loudon because we didn't have all the answers. We learned a lot along the way, but we kept our systems in place year after year, day after day, and we were able to close that 6th grade gap. And it was pretty profound. I'll show you at the end of the presentation what that looked like. It's just, we can begin, if there's any place to begin, it's TK, kindergarten, 1st grade, because that's where we want to build that phonemic awareness and correct letter sounds and blending that, decoding those critical pieces. That brings us into what to teach. How do we prevent the reading failure? We have to know about the 5 essential reading skills as shown in the National Reading Panel in 2000, over 20 years ago, still stands today. Phonemic awareness, vocabulary and language, phonics, oral reading fluency resulting in reading comprehension. Knowing about those truly helps you along your journey. And I'm just briefly going to share with you the model that is so profound. The slide before this, these are color coded because phonemic awareness and phonics are in red, vocabulary and oral language are in blue, reading comprehensions in purple, and phonics, fluency is in black. It just is an overlay of what happens in the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is on the bottom left. It's decoding multiplied by language comprehension, which results in reading comprehension. And that I had to wrap my mind around that as an administrator. We had to get those pieces right and able to have our kids read accurately, fluently, and with comprehension. So paying attention to the word pronunciation, letter recognition, the connection of phonemes to letters, the word meanings multiplied by the word meanings, background knowledge, listening comprehension. And that results in understanding the meaning of text, which is also bridged or strengthened by really working on that oral reading fluency. That was huge at our school. Knowing the differences in assessment. And I say this because we can over assess our kids. We have so many assessments available. And I've seen so many elementary schools with too many assessments. It really boils down to this. You need a really valid and reliable universal screener. It tells you who is at risk of reading failure, but it also tells you what skills. A diagnostic assessment, which pinpoints the lowest skill deficit. This is huge. A progress monitoring component that tells us if the instruction that we've implemented is working or not. And then finally, our outcome evaluation, which is our end of the year state tests. How did we fare in that rigorous environment? How did the students fare? Assessment and data is wonderful, but if it sits on the shelf, if we look at it, we go, oh, okay, we've got this, that. We've got to apply, we've got to have data-driven assessment decisions. And I don't know about you, but in my career, the focus was on identification and placement of kids that if they couldn't read, we had to wait for them to fail a couple of years, place them into special services. And the focus truly needs to be on student outcomes. That is the whole premise of an MTSS RTI model, because the MTSS is the framework for implementing the science of reading. Honestly, you can't have one without the other. Science of reading tenets, data, it's all great. But if you don't have structures and systems in which to make it work, it falls flat and you won't make the type of progress that our kids need. So the MTSS model, or the 3-tier model, what is it communicating? And honestly, it's about instruction. It's building a system of instruction. We don't have tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 students. We have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 instruction geared towards prevention. We want, of course, 100% of our students reading accurately and fluently, but they're not all in the same place. They don't all need the same things. Some may need more intense instruction. Some need a different kind of instruction. It's a continuum that flows back and forth. When I first started at Loudon and our first reading assessments came through, I mean, it was like 75% of our kids were at risk. It was insurmountable. I thought, I don't know how to turn this around. It's really goes with the data and knowing your students and using the collaborative problem solving process. This is the system. This right here is the nucleus that helps you decide how much instruction, what depth of instruction, what kind of instruction. This collaborative problem solving process saved us. We lived and breathed this system. If you walk away with anything today, I hope that it is this right here. It's having the right kind of universal screener. For us, we used Acadience. It helped us identify the problem. In kindergarten and first grade, it was phonemic awareness. And it was shown through our data. We were not doing a good enough job. We had to fix that. And it trickled up to everything else. So then you go into why is it occurring? Is it the student? Is it their environment? Is it absences? Is it constant, the teacher's gone or there's substitute teachers? There's many factors. However, you boil it down to the instruction. How can we best help the student? And some need a diagnostic, a lot of ours needed a diagnostic screener to find the lowest skill deficit and fix that. And that's what we did. What are we going to do about it? Then that's building our schedule and making sure we had our paraprofessionals and our teachers in small group instruction, and we streamlined our instruction, targeted instruction to match the problem. And then we had to progress monitor along the way with progress monitoring data. Is it working? Is it not? How do we adjust? So with the data, it was 3 times a year, beginning, middle, and end of the year. Those are your big benchmarks. But boy, that progress monitoring, for some students, it was every week. Others, it was every 2 weeks. Some maybe 3 weeks. But it was constantly meeting with my leadership team and going through that progress monitoring data and having a hand on the pulse, so to speak, of how these kids were faring. Very powerful. I love this slide because it states it so well. Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. This is by Edwards Deming. And when I became a new principal and we were facing 75% of our kids at risk, I was like, I hated this quote. I thought, oh, that hits home to me, because we don't have a system designed to get good results, improve the reading outcomes that we should. Then after learning about the science of reading, equipping ourselves with the materials and processes and the assessments we needed, the ongoing professional development, we were able to turn that around and get much improved reading outcomes. I say that the principal is the linchpin, the district office administrator in charge of curriculum and instruction and assessments. You're the ones that are in control, that make those critical decisions about the ongoing professional learning. And if I can say this as a principal, it's so important to learn side by side, shoulder to shoulder with your teachers and your specialists, your paraprofessionals. You're in the room. You don't get the meeting started and walk and go take care of the school. Nope. I had to have coverage. I had to have other people taking care of discipline, whatever happened. I was in the room with professional learning going on, and I learned right. You can't know everything. It's a journey. Not all the pieces come into place at one time. It's truly a step at a time, and it takes perseverance, but it is the most rewarding work you will ever do. Like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know a lot in the beginning, and that's okay. You have to just begin. You can begin today by making certain decisions, putting certain pieces into place. You don't have to know everything. This is my wonderful school, Loudon Elementary. I already gave you the statistics of our school, and we were up against all odds. And in this journey, this is what our first reading data looked like with Acadians. We had so much red and yellow. We were drowning. And that meant our kids came to us from their homes, maybe 36%, 40% on benchmark to be a reader. But by the end of the year, they left kindergarten 28% on target. I was like, that was my seminal moment. I was like, oh, we can't sustain this. This is going to be terrible. The alarm bells went off. I knew that first grade teachers, 72%, how are they going to shore up these kids and move them along the way? And I have to say, again, it's a journey. It didn't all happen in 1 year. We equipped ourselves with the knowledge. Year after year, we got better. But those kindergartners that were 72% were at risk. By the end, I'll show you the good news that happened with them, just by staying the course and putting the right things in each grade level along the way. I knew enough about the 5 big ideas of reading. I knew about the phonological awareness, phonics, knowledge, reading fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension, but it was ad hoc. It was hodgepodge. It was all over the place. You know, the teachers, it was more whole language, balanced literacy, leveled readers. We didn't have a good phonics continuum. We had intervention. We were pulling out kids for intervention right and left. And you hear the word pulling out. We flipped that around and we pushed in. it was not systematic and sequential. We didn't know which really specific reading skills to shore up because we didn't have a diagnostic at the time. We didn't know for how long the certain instruction would need to go on and what intensity. We didn't have the right progression. Well, I tell you, what really helped me and saved me was meeting Dr. Hall at the National Title I Conference. It was on the West Coast that year, and I'll never forget going up to her kiosk, her booth, seeing all her manipulatives out. And I recognized a lot of things that were great practices. And I thought, I just had a conversation with her. I thought, we have a walk to learn going on. We have small group instruction, but we're not getting the results we need. It's not quick enough. It's not thorough enough. And when she showed me her diagnostic assessment, it was like electricity went through me. I thought, this is the missing piece, because we did not know how to identify the very lowest skill deficit in phonemic awareness or in phonics. And she had these two diagnostic screeners that were easy to use, easy to implement. And I thought, okay. And not only that, she developed the materials and processes to go along with it. So as a principal, time is of essence. I'm thinking, I don't have time to hunt and peck and figure out which curriculum where. We jumped in K through 6. I put my iPhone in a kidney-shaped table with my first grade team. I said, you need to listen to Dr. Hall. We flew one of her consultants out. Then finally she came out. And anyway, that was the start of our journey. And she helped us create the systems that we needed. They're putting things into progression, the phonics continuum and phonemic awareness continuum, that they're interrelated, that phonological and phonics knowledge, they go hand in hand together, back and forth. There's a flow, and building that accuracy and then reading fluency. Didn't know that our kids needed to have 95, 96% accuracy to build that fluency. We were trying to build the fluency with 80% accuracy. It wasn't working. And that diagnostic and the materials and processes to clean up those lowest skill deficits got our kids to become accurate in their decoding. And then we were able to work on that fluency. And all the while you're building the vocabulary and comprehension pieces. And again, here's that collaborative problem solving model. We use this relentlessly, and it paid off. We were able to identify the students and what their risk areas were exactly with the diagnostic screener, drill down, change our instruction, provide small group instruction, and progress monitor. It was literally student by student. Here is a snapshot. This is first grade. And you see all of these kids in red, like what is going on? How do we help them? This is a middle of the year, and it's correct letter sounds, obviously, and words blending into words correct. We had to change our instruction to meet the needs of those kids. As simple as that. It's simply targeting that instruction to the specific needs of the students. And a lot of the curriculum, I think we had treasures, and then we went to benchmark advanced. It took a back seat. It wasn't as important as what we had going on with our small group instruction and the phonics the continuum we were using. We built our schedule, and we have the green block is differentiation of the core. We had a consultant come in, Kara Bergen, who was excellent in helping us differentiate at the core during tier 1 and create small group instruction. And that was great, but it was really the orange block, the tier 2, where we utilize that diagnostic screener and the materials and processes and intervention to clean up those lowest reading skill deficits. When we realized what was going on in tier 2, we brought that into tier 1. Like our kids needed double dose. They were behind the 8 ball. They needed a lot. And that's that continuum and that pyramid. You have to see what your data, it's driven by the data. Are the kids responding? If not, why? And double up or give the provide more intensity or smaller groups. And then you begin to see results. We had to move away from structured typical literacy practices like whole language or balanced literacy. We had to move away as letters, like 1 letter a week in kindergarten. That's what our kindergarten teachers were amazed. They were great, but we weren't equipped with the correct or right knowledge as based on the science of reading research that we have today. And we had to move away as letters from the starting point and having, we had to move away from phonics being taught as a whole or incidentally by using word families. We had to move away from leveled books. We had to move away from the picture cues and the context analysis. And we had to move away from choral reading and shared reading and guided reading. And we had to move to the structured literacy approach, where we had the sound symbol, the orthographic mapping. We had to have the great letter sound combinations and sequence from easier to harder in phonics and spelling. Our oral language had to be a reference point for print, and the books used for reading aloud were more challenging than what the students were reading independently. And our fluency had to be controlled. We had to have accurate decoders and build that fluency. We read naturally was wonderful for us. We had to build in our reading comprehension the background knowledge and text structure, and overtly model the practices in a planned progression. That was structured literacy. That's what we moved towards. We were also in that data-driven model. We always applied these 2 questions. How will we know if the students learned? The emphasis is on learning. And how will we respond if they don't? It's all about the learning, and it's all about our response. Successful academic outcomes are not achieved by students waiting to fail, but they are achieved instead by systematically applying these 2 questions. I referenced John Hattie. We used his research as well. And I have these 3 red arrows because this was our school. It was collective teacher efficacy. How did we get that? Through that collaborative problem-solving model, through the data-driven instruction. Our grade levels worked as teams. Our school worked together. We had response to intervention. We had the MTSS model. We used direct instruction. Anita Archer, I do, we do, you do. Those 3 things right there were profound in turning our reading outcomes around. This is just an explanation of Hattie's best practices. The teacher efficacy is a staff's shared belief that through their collective action, they can positively influence student outcomes, including those who are disengaged or disadvantaged. And that was Loudon Elementary. And I was so incredibly proud of our teachers. I show you this slide because this was our kindergarten data. And at the bottom, you see beginning, middle, and end of the year. This is an Acadience report. And the green bar, the very first bar, was our first blush with reality of where we were with reading outcomes. That's where the kids came in 36% on track to read, and they left going into first grade 28%. They left knowing less. And we had to fix that. And to our kindergarten team, they put in some strategies, did some things that helped, you can see, but right there where that yellow arrow is, that's where we really began to get some traction. That's when we brought in 95% group professional learning, the materials and processes, and the diagnostic assessments. Here is our SBAC information, our CASP for California. I'll tell you, it came out in 2015. That's the first time we took the test. And that's the blue bar for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. I mean, 12% of our kids in 4th grade were proficient on that. It was devastating to see those results. And we had just brought in 95. I knew though, by the Acadience data, our red kids were getting less red. Our yellows were getting less red. Our green kids were becoming stronger. There was a groundswell beginning to happen, and I knew it would take time. This is where you have to have patience. This is when you have the right things in place, it will happen. So in 4 short years, we were able to get almost 60% proficiency on the CASP, which is huge for a high poverty school. In our district, we have 24 schools, 19 elementary schools, well now 20 elementary schools, but we were at the bottom. And then with the last time CASP was taken right before COVID, we were 4th highest in our district. And did we still, yes, we still have work to do. I mean, 40% were not where they should be, but boy, it was on an upward progression. And I have to tell you, the teachers were really disappointed in 2020 when COVID hit that they were not able to take the CASP because they just knew those 6th graders were going to be near 70% proficient, and 5th as well, 4th and 3rd was just becoming off the charts. So this was the piece I told you about, keeping systems in place year after year, grade level by grade level, having the structures and systems. This is an Acadience report. This is 6th grade mid-year. So COVID shut us down around St. Patrick's Day in 2020. Well, this was in January. 93% of our 6th graders were reading accurately and fluently and with comprehension. I just literally cried when I saw this data. It was profound because those were the kindergartners that were so at risk in 1st grade. But year after year, keeping the systems and structure in place, they have hope for the future. They have a chance in life. So what does it take to improve reading outcomes? I just want to share this with you. Dr. Stoller I have learned so much through her support and guidance. You collect your universal screening data. You learn about the science of reading, have ongoing professional learning. There was not a year without the consultants coming in and helping us learn. Year after year, the data changes, the needs change. I had 95% come in 3 times a year. I had continuing professional learning with the Acadience when we needed it. When we needed refresher, we have to have accurate data to make accurate decisions. We had ongoing professional learning with differentiation of the core. And we used that, implemented that database decision-making process, and we used our screening data to analyze our tier 1 curriculum, because the more we can reach our students in core in tier 1, the less we have an intervention. And that's the goal. In MTSS, the goal is to have at least 80% of our students proficient in tier 1. We weren't there quite yet, but given another year or 2, that's where we were going. And then the last piece is to align your tier 2 with your core. This is a simple view of a multi-tiered system of support that I put together. It's really just to simply look at this from a big picture perspective. It's your systems and structures. So the schedules, personnel management, universal screener, data collection, diagnostic data protocols, and progress monitoring. That multiplied by your instruction and curriculum, your instructional routines, the differentiation of core, knowing the 5 essential literacy skills, using structured literacy, the explicit, systematic, sequential instruction, using evidence-based curriculum and intervention would result in improving literacy for all students. There are a few driving principles that are essential. This is adapted from the work of Brent Conway, and he's done a lunch and lead. I encourage you to go back and view his presentation with Donna, along with Angie Hanlon. She's a district superintendent. Amazing, wonderful stories, but we're all saying the same things, essentially. We can't intervene our way out of a tier 1 problem. We have to really know the science of reading tenets, shore up that tier 1. We want annual growth for all and catch up growth for those who are not at benchmark. Structured literacy is necessary for many and it benefits all our students. Tiers of instruction are not locations or people, but it represents the level of intensity, frequency, and format of instruction. And skillful implementation of high quality curriculum, it's your ongoing professional learning, and all students are general education students first. I just thought this was a good way to end. Is we all have some data at our school. What is our data telling us? Oh, sorry about that. I added this. And it's just, as I said, this is a journey and we have to have the courage to take action. And I hope that this is your call to action as well, is to improve your reading outcomes. Are you there? I can't hear you.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, we're good.
Did you hear during the presentation?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know what
It was
happened.
just the last minute or so that I think you got muted, Sharon, but now we can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it was the last 30 seconds.
Okay. I don't know
You're good.
what happened, but yay. Okay. Well, I hope this was helpful and supportive
This was great. Thank you
on
so
your
much.
journey.
Yes, yes, yes. We have some time for a few questions. Does anyone have any questions for Sharon? If you do, you can unmute.
I have a question about the triangle, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I actually just watched a presentation by Stephanie Stoller. I think it was from the Patton Symposium. And she talked about how, thinking about it as far as that it was 80% of students at the tier 1, and then the other percentages were kids that needed that extra level of support at tier 2 and tier 3. I just, when I share that with other staff, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. Does that mean that there are some students who will always need tier 2 and tier 3 in addition to tier 1?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you will have students that need that additional support. We've got anywhere, the numbers are debatable, but anywhere from 5 to 17% of students are dyslexic and they need that extra support within that tier 2 and tier 3. And some have other outside issues that may be impeding their learning, and they need that extra support.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I might add that if you are targeting the interventions appropriately, you should be able to get kids out of the tiers. You know, not every kid should be doomed to special ed, or special ed should be used as a as the working your way into special ed, which is a lot of teachers do that. You know, it's like, well, they'll just go to special ed and it'll all be fixed. Well, no, that's not true. And so, because often our special ed teachers don't have the science training as well.
You are so right. I've probably done 1,000 SSTs in my career, and it was, wait to fail and place in special ed. Special ed doesn't have a magic wand. They have assessments, but the curriculum and the professional learning to know how to really close that reading gap. So it is up to us at core to get as many kids as we can in tier 2. The point is, you want to have patience. Like I said, with those kinders, then making it to 6th grade, it was year after year that cleaning up those skill deficits. We found that we had very few 4th, 5th, and 6th graders after a time that needed those reading skill deficits cleaned up, because we were able to prevent it in kinder, 1st, and 2nd grade and catch the stragglers in 3rd grade. But we had a high mobility school, so we had constantly kids moving in from other districts or behind. There were a smattering of kids in the older grades that needed that skill cleanup. But when you have, that's the beauty of systems, when you have them in place, you're able to continuously improve that student learning. And for some kids, it doesn't happen in 1 year. It may not happen in 2. It may take 3.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of instructional leaders or teachers don't understand that. I've just seen it happen with my own eyes. I was amazed at that 6th grade data. I just 93% that could read accurately and fluently with comprehension. That's profound.
That's a time to celebrate for sure.
Yes. And it's being diligent, sticking with it. And there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be teachers that get frustrated, but once they start getting their hands on the data and really progress monitoring and seeing that the instructional changes they're making works, all of that negativism goes by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
And our staff became so cohesive. We were all rowing in the same direction. I felt like I was in principal heaven, honestly, because at the beginning it wasn't like that. A lot of resistance. It was close your door. I'm going to do whatever I want. I've taught for 20, 30 years. I'm going to do what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to break that cycle.
I had a conversation with a gal yesterday that has been turned on to the science of reading, and she has helped turn her school around to get things changed, because she in the last 2 or 3 years, she's just been starting to implement really good interventions and real good diagnostics. And she said, before all of this, I just took my data and said, well, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
You
look at it and you say, okay, we've got this.
It's gonna rain today and there's nothing I can do about it,
Yes, absolutely. Like a shotgun approach. I taught it, but they didn't learn it.
They didn't learn it. Not my problem. So
that's where MTSS
totally
focuses on learning. Did the kids learn it to mastery? That's where you need your data. That's where you need your collaborative problem solving process. And it's really not that difficult. There's just simple components that I touched on today. It is not that difficult. You can begin this today. And
it really is, that's very true. And I wanted to make a comment that for me in this presentation, the most important slide is the one that talks about system structures and the science of reading. Those 3 components are very, very important. You just can't do it by doing science of reading. I mean, that's a great start, but you have to have the whole enchilada, right?
Right. It's really, science of reading lives within that MTS. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
You have to have that framework, the MTSS framework, for which to make that impact, to get to the kids, to the application of the instruction to improve the reading outcomes.
So, for those of you who are super motivated to turn on to the science of reading, that I applaud you, and that's great. But the next step is to get your whole school to get those systems and structures in place that lead to all that good diagnostic testing and good schedules and efficient use of time, optimizing time to optimize learning. It's a complete system.
Right.
Mhm.
It is. And on that note, if you're an administrator or principal or a teacher that wants to share, I've added some slides. I couldn't get into the brain research today because of time, but there's a video link with Stanislaus Dehaan explaining how students learn. Here are the links to Emily Hanford's podcast. These were profound when I first heard her first podcast, and we were on the upswing at Loudon. We really were beginning to make the best progress when her first one came out. And I thought, oh, this is truth. And if there's resistance at a school site or a district, I highly recommend these. And oh, that's just the last slide, just to remember that every organization is perfectly aligned to get the results it gets. And I hope.
Okay, we got a question here. Could you repeat the
Yeah.
statistic? You shouldn't work on fluency until students are at what percentage accurate with
95, 96%
Mhm.
accurate. And that's we used Acadians. I love Acadians because of the benchmark goals, and the research behind it is profound. And their whole professional learning in Acadians is worth the investment, and knowing that accuracy piece was huge. And most of my teachers didn't know it either. It was like, but we didn't know how to get to that 95% accuracy. We didn't have that. We needed that diagnostic, and then the materials and processes to clean up those lowest skill deficits.
Sure, you can't be accurate. You can't be fluent unless you're accurate.
Right. And then read naturally was just something that we already had, and we were able to just help the kids fly with their fluency and comprehension and vocabulary development. That vocabulary development piece came with 95 as well. They have vocab surge, they have a comprehension piece. So it hit all the tenets that we needed. And I'm just so thankful that our kids were able to thrive, and they have some hope for the future.
Well, Sharon, know that you left your career leaving smiles on faces and a legacy left. And congratulations. That doesn't happen very often.
Well, thank you. And I just appreciate this opportunity to share the story of Loudon. And then, like, if I can do it, you can do it. And just to come alongside other administrators to help them. That's my life's work, and it can be done.
It can be done. Thank you so much. Just a
Thank you.
reminder, we will have Luncheon Leads every first Friday of the month. If you want to see the schedule, it's at w-reads.org, and it's in the chat. Thank you, Nancy. And what else? I think that's it. Oh, I will be sending this recording and the PDF of these slides to everyone who's registered. Thanks for your time. Have a great weekend, and thanks for showing up. Bye-bye.
Thank you.